Hi, I'm Matt.
And I'm Dee Dee. We are the hilarious outcome of opposing brains sharing a mutual desire to share knowledge and positive thinking about hemp and cannabis.
We are here to tear down the walls built by Big Pharma and other big companies that seek to keep the human race in fear and divided.
We are here to shatter the myths about hemp and cannabis and change the stigma of this amazing plant. Welcome to Hemp and Happiness with the Hemp Queen
and Emperor
podcast. Join us as we venture into this misunderstood and the unknown. Hey y'all, welcome back to the podcast. We got an awesome special guest, and I have to give lots of accolades because, well, I'm married to the man. So welcome jtaylor to the Hemp and Happiness podcast. So Matt and I are probably just going to ask you a few little questions, but we're mostly going to let you take the stage. Keep in mind, this is going live and people will hear this. So everything you say can and will be used against you, boss.
Okay. Well, I'm not afraid of that, but thank you. It's nice to be here.
It's not like the pool,
I appreciate
John.
you all.
It's not like the pool.
I appreciate you all.
Where what happens in the pool stays in the pool. This is like for real recorded.
Yeah.
Not just for, weekend entertainment.
No, I'll keep it well polished.
Yes, there you go. So, hey, I'll get started.
It's good to be here.
Good. I'm glad you're here. I'll get started. Let me ask you, why'd you pick hemp? Just give a little background.
I didn't pick hemp. Cannabis picked me. I found out, unfortunately, what a grand mal seizure was when I kept having them, and I kept finding myself in waking up in the ER or waking up with the police in my house or EMS or any number of things. And the pharmaceutical drugs that I was given at the time just didn't work. It was always take 2 more of these, or let's try 4 more of those, or this one's new and it might work, but it's not covered by insurance. So I went through the whole litany of what is known as the healthcare system, and it just all it did was make things worse. So out of frustration and a couple of near fatal seizures, I took my health into my own hands, and I reached out through the wonderful world of the internet and found somebody who said they may have a solution. And that's where I found CBD oil, specifically cannabis oil, that was derived from a low THC variety of marijuana.
Back in 2010.
For many people who still don't know, cannabis is marijuana and cannabis is hemp.
It's the same plant?
It is. Cannabis sativa can be grown to either have high content of THC or low content of THC. And that's what really differentiates hemp from marijuana. It's the legal threshold for THC, not that the plant is different. So found a solution. It worked immediately. I actually went asymptomatic for a little over 4.5 years. I'm sure you'll correct me on that date.
5 years.
I beat you to the draw. So it was working. Got off all of the pharmaceutical drugs. I got my life back in order, paid off the medical debt. And during that time, Kentucky had passed the hemp bill. Well, one thing led to another, and I had the unfortunate ability to know how to produce this product. We started Commonwealth Extracts.
Back in 2014. Been doing it for a while.
Yeah, That's very interesting. So, John, you brought up an interesting question for me. You mentioned that you were using a strain of low-level THC cannabis. Where do you see, and let's put laws aside, let's put regulations aside, optimally, with a mixture of cannabinoids, where do you see the THC levels optimally being for a medical benefit, in your opinion? Mind you, we're not giving any medical information here, no claims about CBD or cannabis for that matter, just opinions.
Well, it's, that's a good question. It's hard to say what the answer is because, again, I'm not a doctor either. But the medicine is the dose. That's what people teach. And most medicines are poison. And what makes it medicine is that the dose is right. Because just like a Valium or a Xanax or an OxyContin or any number of drugs will kill you if you take too much of them. If you take too much THC, it's not a pleasant experience. So for me, that's a production model. So high THC marijuana, it makes the cost of producing THC lower. High CBD cannabis makes the cost of producing CBD lower. So I'm going to leave the doctoring to the smart people. But I know there is benefit. I think from a hemp point of view, if we're talking about regulatory, 1% total THCA and THC only would give the farmers a lot more leeway and a lot more productivity that right now they currently don't have. And there's not really going to make a bit of difference in terms of whether or not people get high, because you don't get high on THC at that level. But, splitting a hair over fully decarb, non-decarb, total THC at 0.30 versus 1% doesn't make a bit of difference. It just makes the farmer's job harder. It all comes down to cost of production. Really, my engineering mind is cost of goods oriented. So, if you need the THC output, it's easier to have a high THC plant than it is to try to maximize or convert a low THC plant. Mother Nature pretty much got it right. So, whether it's the left hand, I'm trying to hold the left hand or the right hand, it's still just a mix of cannabinoids.
So do you think
not to evade your question, Matt?
No, that's a great question. And one thing that you brought up that I think is interesting is you said that if you take too much THC, it's going to be an unpleasant experience. With anyone who've experimented with THC, you've had this happen. I'm not aware of anyone who's died from taking too much THC.
I thought I was going to one time.
So you may feel like you are, but you don't. And that's a huge difference from taking something like too much of an opioid or too much of a muscle relaxer or something
Correct.
like that. As you said, John, most medications are poison. CBD cannabinoids work with your body, not counter to your body.
Correct.
Depending on the dose.
That's the big difference in general.
Well,
Yeah.
and unlike overdosing on vitamin C, if you overdose on THC, there was a documented case of a college student who ate too many edibles in Denver and somehow fell out the balcony window of his hotel room from the 24th floor. It is an intoxicant. There needs to be some levels of responsibility, but, prohibiting or banning, again, that's not the way that you keep people safe.
Right.
That's not the way you ensure product quality. So I think there's still going to be a line in the sand eventually between hemp-based, low THC and what we call dispensary or medical cannabis or legal cannabis, where the potencies are much, much higher. So to me, it'd be like the difference between buying a Chardonnay from the gas station, whereas if you want, 190 proof liquor, then you got to go over to this store where, they have a different license. Perhaps something under that model. So it's hard to say.
Speaking from purely a licensing perspective, I would agree with that. And you keep bringing these interesting segues in. You mentioned that while THC could cause an accident, THC isn't the root cause of a death. Which is a big difference. There is no record of overdose
it was debated
itself.
And no, from the compound in itself, no, there's been no documented evidence of any type of, you might be in a coma-like state for 36 hours, scare your parents, be put on an IV. I joke, but again, it's better than you don't need Narcan. This is a very serious subject in some cases where people don't understand the power of an edible.
Right.
And then by the time you've gotten done eating the whole bag, you can't uningest these compounds. So,
and
yes,
to
there
me,
needs to be some level of responsibility.
right. And to me, it makes sense that you buy those from an established store, retail, whatever, and not just, off the street. You don't know what you're getting. You don't have someone there to guide you, just be like, hey man, go slow. Just go slow. Just try eating a half of one. I think that's kind of important too.
Well, the education is always key. And that's to me one of the values of a dispensary, because it's an interaction. It's an opportunity to ask some questions, get some answers, get an understanding, rather than, hey, there's 15 people behind you in line. You know, everybody else needs gas, cigarettes, and beer also.
Right.
You know, in a convenience market type setting. So yes, the intimacy that you all provide certainly is an asset.
Intimacy. I'm good at that.
You said intimacy. Anyway, not to dilute the conversation. Sorry, John. I can't help myself. I need a recovery program. Anyway, one last question because we're going down the THC rabbit hole. The 0.3%, do you think that is truly put in place to protect people, or do you think that is in place to stop people from potentially not taking prescription medications like Xanax and the myriad of opiates, opioids, whatever you want to call them?
No. I don't think they're related. I think what the real issue is that if you have to look at this historically, marijuana was prohibited in 1937 with the implementation of the Marijuana Tax Act, which effectively prohibited any cultivation of any hemp, any cannabis in any form, unless you had a tax stamp, which they didn't issue. So it was rooted in some racial discrimination against Hispanics and African Americans. It was also, at the same time, William Randolph Hearst was perfecting some of the processes for bleaching paper. And so he was looking as paper pulp as a key competitor, and the only other competitor in the landscape was hemp. So there were some theories about why was the push for this. At the same time, in 1937, DuPont patented nylon. And at that time, the day and age of chemistry and the future, and, we didn't understand the harm that we were doing to our planet.
Yeah.
And the fact that nature had certain things right. Because up until that time, hemp, specifically Kentucky hemp, was known around the world as the best, the number one source of fiber for all sailing ships, all nautical use, and had been grown for hundreds of years. So 1937 was a paradigm shift. At the time, the legislation came out, and an arbitrary number was given of 0.3%. Coincidentally, they didn't even have the ability to test down to 0.3%. They knew what THC was, but the analytical systems necessary to get to that level hadn't even been developed yet. So pick a number. It sounds low. Let's make it sound lower than that. Is it 3%? Is it 0.3? Is it a typo? We don't know. Can't have it anyway, under any circumstances. Within that law, there was an exemption for cannabis, and that was hemp. And hemp, as long as it was fiber and stalk, was allowed. But this is where it gets tricky. Within the exemption, there was an exemption. It said you could grow hemp under the Marijuana Tax Act, but you couldn't collect the resin from the female flowers of the hemp plant. Now, again, they knew what this shit did. Sorry, I don't mean to cuss, but
it's okay.
The farmers knew after they were done clipping and cutting, at the end of the day, scrape the blade, and lo and behold, if you put that in your pipe and smoked it, it obviously has the same benefit as it does today. So,
Maynard
again,
G.
it was an arbitrary. I think it was an arbitrary number at the time. Now that we know a lot more about the levels of intoxication given concentration, 1%, 1.5% total THCA and THC Delta 9 only would be more than sufficient to be able to ease concern at the farm. I read a report that over 2/3 of the crop in Colorado was destroyed and burned because it was above 0.30.
Ouch.
That's just, we're
I'd have liked
in
to
a
have been in that
state that has
bonfire,
legal
though.
marijuana for sale.
Yeah, but that's such a shame.
In a
it
state that
hurts
has
the
legal
farmers.
marijuana for sale. Well, think about this. In a state where you can get off the plane, take a limo to airport dispensary, 10 minutes from DIA, and
you know that well.
buy marijuana.
John rides in a limo.
I
That's the key point to this story.
In the area. It was a research project. Okay, let's not.
I need to roll with you, John. Freaking getting off the plane, getting in limos
WTF.
to dispensaries, bro.
WTF?
Come on.
I put on my fur coat and my big fedora that's glittery, and they just know I'm coming. The carpet rolls out. Like, wow, he's here.
We need to hang out more. It's done. This is done.
I'm telling you, Jekyll and Hyde here. You just don't know.
Yes.
No, but you make a really good point. The fact that those farmers, a legal state that grows marijuana, sells marijuana, but heaven forbid their hemp crop was over 0.3% and it got destroyed. That's a lot of money that those farmers lost out on.
0.30. Oh, it's tens and tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah. That's a shame. I mean, it's happened here in Kentucky too.
So it has. Our state is one of the most restrictive in the country. They helped write the law that became the federal guidelines, which is total THC.
Right.
When we began the program, you could have a plant like our CBD cherry that at most it might be 0.4, 0.5 total THC. But at the time, the majority of that, 90% of it was in THCA. So our Delta 9 THC would be 0.1. Pardon me, got a little gas. The THCA would be 0.3, 0.4. So when you decarb that, all of a sudden, lo and behold, when you combine total THC, that plant's illegal. And to me, all that does is hurt productivity if we're growing CBD. These fractions of a percent are arbitrary to begin with. They're not going to make a difference in terms of an intoxicating factor.
Wait a minute,
and
sir.
And now that we know what we know about converting.
So you mean to tell me that they take a cannabinoid and convert it into other cannabinoid, and that's okay, but when you want to take CBD and convert it to Delta 8, that's not okay? Sorry.
Soapbox disclosure.
It
started with
an arbitrary.
Continue, John.
It's an arbitrary decision based on one interpretation of the law. If all cannabinoids are legal, that shouldn't be a problem. And yes, you heard me right, that when Kentucky Department of Agriculture tests our samples, the process that they put the plant through is called decarboxylation. What that means is that they put the sample in a vial with ethanol and they heat it up and they add 185 degrees Celsius and they convert all of the THCA into THC by a chemical conversion process called decarboxylation. And so what they do is they have determined that they wanted to have the THC potential fully quantified on a test report. And so, yes, if we're looking at, hi, Mr. Pot, my name's Kettle. Nice to meet you. Over here on this other side of the fence, we have this other legal issue that says converting molecules is somehow synthetic and not natural, and that somehow those are bad as opposed to naturally derived being good. The law simply says all cannabinoids have been legalized as long as the Delta 9 is not more than 0.3%.
Correct. And
this new proposed legislation in 170 combines all of the ancillary cannabinoids into a total, all right, I'm off here, total THC, which would be 1%. So a proposed 1% law, unfortunately, includes all of those other cannabinoids, which makes all of the extracts illegal. So I don't think they quite know what to do with this legislative nightmare they've gotten themselves into, other than to say we've lost. We're so sorry to have wasted hundreds of millions of dollars in capital. And we'll try to stay out of the way from now on. But I'm not holding my breath on that one. This is being recorded, right? Because I want to make sure everybody hears that.
Yes.
Yes,
it
myself.
is.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Duly noted.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's a learning experience. We're all learning.
It's been very unfortunate and disappointing to watch some of the wasted, needless. Well, it's not needless. It's a lot of farmers' income, equity, a lot of processors who went bankrupt, both morally sound companies as well as immoral companies. It's happened to both as a result of some of these. Again, they're perpetuating the arbitrary number of 0.3 and then adding to that and combining that in a way that just pushes business out of our state. That's all it really does. It doesn't stop anything.
So what would you recommend to change this, John?
Well, if we were talking from a managerial point of view, which is kind of where my background's from, I think it's time for a change of administration. I think that
we need to move.
Now
So for the average citizen, the average consumer,
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as most consumers out there that,
Yeah, I did air quotes.
unfortunately, Kentucky, I don't want to be a skeptic, and I know the session is still going, but I've watched the same bill fail in Kentucky for years now, and all the while, I'm a pragmatist. I'm a conservative, you know, fiscally minded business leader. Colorado had $2 billion in tax surplus sitting in their coffers. They can't. There's not enough cranes in Denver right now. They can't build enough light rail programs. It's obscene how much money they have. Illinois, while the program's a little corrupt and it's monopolized, billions of dollars in revenue for the state. Why are we going to be last?
So what can we do?
What's
this?
What we can do is if people were to, we need to be known worldwide for 5 things. We're already known for 4. You know what they are? You're a traveler, Matt. You've been all around. Your favorite, Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yes.
Kentucky Fried Chicken. We've got tobacco. We've got thoroughbreds.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got bourbon.
Yes.
Why not be known for the world source of cannabis?
And hemp. Agreed.
Cannabis. I'm just going to use the word broadly because I think it should include both.
It does. I agree.
We are clinging on to 1930 to 1950 mindset, and this country does not go backwards. 38 states are not going to criminalize this program. I mean, for anybody that says it's not going to happen, well, you don't have to partake in it. But the nation has changed. Our values have shifted. And let's put the money towards, I don't know, ending the fentanyl crisis or other drugs that hurt people. Let's put the money where it belongs. Why not have Kentucky be a agricultural base
Mecca.
for? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you think
that's kind of what I see in advocating for your legislators? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, sorry. Do you think that by making, the whole premise is that it's a gateway drug. That's what they've always said for all these years. Do you truly believe that cannabis is a gateway drug?
I'm going to go back to the Nancy Reagan DARE classes.
Mm-hmm.
I was, I think, 12 or 13 years old. The McGruff dog came out.
Mm-hmm.
Bunch of people with a bunch of T-shirts. We all got one.
Mm-hmm.
Just say no. There's no doubt that there's drugs and that people sometimes get involved in them inadvertently. I would consider in today's day and age a gateway drug to be more like or another pharmaceutical compound prescribed by a doctor. That's where I see most of what I've seen as the heroin epidemic. That's where that's rooted. No, I wouldn't. I think if people want to throw away their life and get high, you can paint. If it doesn't matter what drug you're doing, then any drug will do.
So most
states that have marijuana programs have seen a decline in drug use among youth. As a matter of statistics.
And you hit on a really interesting point there, John. When you get into the whole DARE thing, what you're really describing is a homogenization of our society and the desire to make everything standardized. Declaring war on things is our claim to fame, which every single time we declare war on something, it goes to shit.
Mm-hmm.
I
didn't know what those drugs were till they
guaranteed.
Brought them in.
Whenever you hear we're going to declare war on this, it's going to be fucked up.
You said the F word.
I know, but you know what? It really bothers me. And I think that's important to say. And it's interesting that it came from the conversation of a gateway drug, and then that leads into another thing that you mentioned about communicating with your legislators. Critical thinking is so absent, and I know I'm a broken record with this, but thinking for yourself and then letting your legislators know you're thinking for yourself, you want to see change, and inspiring others to do the same is what in my opinion, is the only way that is going to make a difference, because you're not going to compete with the $1 billion companies that are holding this down. The only way that we can make a difference is by exposing those billion-dollar companies and being individuals with our own minds and our own thoughts and saying, this is what we want, this is why we want it, and we're at a day and age where we should have that.
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about that. It is high time that Kentucky gets with the program.
Well,
It could be the Mecca.
It's not just Kentucky.
No,
it is
but
everywhere in our society. It's global at this point. Nobody wants to think. They want the information spoon-fed into their mouths so they can just simply digest it and move on. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to get all serious, but
Soapbox.
it's a hot
he calls
topic.
me soapbox.
Well, but redirecting it back to gateway drugs. Let's use a different strategy to look at this. Let's say that for some reason, a percentage of the population decided that smoking corn cobs was fashionable, it was chic, it was the latest thing, that you take a piece of corn husk or other, biological benign matter, and you light it and you inhale it and you smoke it. Would that be made illegal?
Smoking's bad.
Well, I'm not saying it's not, but we have plenty of people who have the right to smoke, and they smoke a lot of tobacco.
Yes.
And that's called your right as an American. And it's sold on every corner. And the Supreme Court ruled that even though it'll kill you, you have a right to buy it and consume it. So let's take that parity and apply it to a portion of the hemp plant that's now been decriminalized. It's off the Controlled Substance Act. But in the state of Kentucky, the farmer can't benefit from the very tip of the plant and sell that as its own commodity because people want to smoke.
Right.
It doesn't get you high. It's not, other than it might confuse law enforcement. It probably smells like marijuana.
It smells just like it, man.
But it's not.
You know?
So if you use the analogies that we have within our society about, well, it might be unhealthy. Well, that doesn't apply because we have tobacco and that kills 250,000 people a year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we don't want people to smoke. Well, again, that's not what the Supreme Court says that you have a right to do, even if it's harming your body. That's your choice. That is free choice.
Yeah.
So if you were to apply the parity of a corn cob to this, again, the people are going to smoke what they want to smoke.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, commerce in our state is driving business in Kentucky. Is driving activity in Tennessee because retailers like yourselves, the great 502 brand, trying to get a plug in there.
Thank you.
Have to have an outlet. Your consumers are telling you what they want to buy. Commerce is good. Activity is happening. And unfortunately, you can't give that money to a farmer in Christian County.
Yep.
Well, and yes. And I think
that's what I see, unfortunately.
I agree. And that's because they want, these companies that have the money want to control what you can consume so that you're consuming their product because they have the money, and they don't view you as an individual. They view you as a consumer. So I think it's apropos that you use the term consumer because that's how a lot of these people, and I'm not singling, I'm not going to single out one company or one group or one industry. Being viewed as a consumer is wrong. You need to be viewed as an individual with your own thoughts and your own opinions, and those should matter when you decide what you do and don't want to consume. Tobacco is a perfect example. I mean, what would the insurance cost be if people didn't smoke anymore and there was no more lung cancer? I guarantee you there would be a difference, but it's still legal.
John knows.
Should the non-smoker pay the rate of the smoker?
Right.
I think that's, again, if you want an individual choice, you have an individual consequence and responsibility.
We could have a whole show on
Oh
that.
my gosh,
in
we
and of
really
itself.
could.
So let's not get
back on the track.
But really, it's just, it all boils down to the same thing of your voice as an individual is only your voice as an individual. Your voice with others who are like-minded, who want to see change, will make a difference. And it doesn't matter how much money they have. You can't hold back the truth forever.
No, that's why I'm such a big advocate. On this industry and everything else.
If there's anything to take from John's words, it's only doom and gloom if we decide it's doom and gloom and we're no better than the consumers that they believe we are.
Agreed.
if we step up and say, we don't want this, we want to make a change, this is what we want, and demand to be heard, we will be heard.
I agree with that. So, as many of you may know or not know, John is my husband, and he and I kind of started out in this amazing journey together. It definitely has not been easy. We have worked our asses off to get where we are today, and we continue to work our asses off to keep this industry going and doing the things that we love to do, and that's helping others with amazing quality products. And I will give him a lot of credit and his team credit. Personally, I think they make the best products in the state. And I'll always say that, and I'll always carry their products, because not just because he's my husband, but because of the regulations that he has in place and the fact that he is audit certified, CGMP. That is so important to us and to the consumer. And most people don't realize that even though this is a new industry, there are regulations already in place that outstanding companies actually follow. And that's important. And that's important to the consumer. And for them to ban some cannabinoids from not being made here in Kentucky, then you're putting it on the black market. You don't know how anything's made. If you've got a good, outstanding company that is already regulated itself and follows every single guideline there is and is audit certified in those guidelines, that's important. That's who I'd want to buy my products from, knowing that it's better quality.
But I disagree that a company should be self-regulated. I think that it's great that these reputable companies, including John's, choose to self-regulate. But I do think that there needs to be regulation in place, and I think it needs to be upheld, because that way, if you don't, then it's no better than buying it on the street. Because as a consumer, these companies are going to make anything that they think you'll consume at the lowest price they can possibly make.
You know, that's just in our state, right?
What?
Most of the other states have more regulations as far as what companies can and can't do. I mean, even Florida, for instance, they have their own set of rules on what should be put on the labels. Exact.
Well, you know what? It's a work in progress.
It is.
There's no point in getting into the minutia.
No, because we'll be up chit-chatty on here all day, and I know he's got work to do, and you do too.
Yeah, I already see him checking his text messages. You should flash. Now's the time to flash.
Just funny about this, because
I'm not flashing anything.
And I'm trying to be.
I'll show you, John.
No, please. Oh, Jesus.
We have
that was for you, buddy.
We had a
mark this explicit.
UPS just lost 18 boxes of product for a client. So again, that's just
good luck with that one.
World. See, I used to have hair.
Yeah, you did.
We'll let you get back to that. I think we've taken enough of your time.
No, you're not at all. It's just a little bit of
thank you
red flag over here.
Thank you for coming, though. We appreciate your time for sure.
Yes. Now listen, y'all keep doing the work you're doing. I'll keep doing what I'm doing. And yes, as you said, work in progress. But again, let's keep progressing forward. Let's not keep progressing backwards to, the days of old, which in cannabis has just been so misplaced.
Yeah.
Let's put all that energy and effort to things that are good. Let's keep products safe for people. And yes, cheaper is not better. You said the most important thing. It costs a lot of money to produce products in a clean, sanitary, and safe facility that has a robust food safety program, HACCP plan. We're very proud of what we do. We find it hard to compete with some of the lower price competitors, but they don't have the safety protocols that we do. They don't do the testing that we do. And all of that has a cost. So again, we love working with great retailers like you. You certainly do your best for your clientele and making sure that you have all the best products from all of your vendors, not just myself.
Correct.
And so again, it's a better way of doing things. I think consumers are going to be more demanding as they become more educated. And yes, this is the same way we've been doing this for quite a long time now, coming up on a decade.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, we're getting old.
The hemp voice is getting louder and louder because the demand is there, and it can't be denied. Yep. It's too strong. I think I've heard you use the term Pandora's box has been opened. And while I don't agree with the whole Pandora's box thing, because I don't think it's a bad thing, I agree with you. I think that now that this has started, it can't be stopped. Right. No matter how many billions people want to throw at it, it's unstoppable because it's too logical. It makes too much sense.
Exactly. And with that
now it just comes down to the money. Yep. It's unfortunately.
Well, and that we have to be patient.
We do.
Come. That's all we can do.
Thanks again for being on with us today. I appreciate you as always.
No.
Yep.
Appreciate what you all do, and keep it up, and let me know how else I can help.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
All right. See you guys.
Bye. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Hemp and Happiness with the Hemp Queen
And Emperor.
Keep your mind ever open and expanding. Like, subscribe, review, follow us, all the good stuff. And
Keep it hempy out there.